Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. North Korea has marked what it calls the 73rd anniversary of Victory Day with large-scale celebrations, using the occasion to reinforce its wartime narrative and showcase its current military capabilities. The events also highlighted Pyongyang's closer ties with China, while Kim Joo-ho's appearance alongside Kim Jong-un once again fueled speculation over the regime's succession plans. Now, beyond the celebrations, diplomatic and security concerns continue to grow. North Korea has once again stayed away from the ASEAN Regional Forum, while fresh claims that Pyongyang could send more troops to Russia have added to concerns over the deepening military partnership between the two countries. So what do these latest developments tell us about North Korea's strategic direction, and what should we be watching on the Korean Peninsula in the months ahead? For answers to this, we are joined in the studio by Kim Mok-yeon, Senior Research Fellow at the Institute for National Security Strategy. A very big welcome, Dr. Go.
Good to be with you.
And also joining us online is Andrew Millard, Head of the Department of International Relations at Changwon National University. Good to see you, Professor.
Good evening. Thanks for having me again.
So first, let's start a discussion with Dr. Go. So like we've said, North Korea has used its Victory Day celebrations to link its Korean War narrative with its current military situation. What kind of message should we read into that?
No, I think on this occasion at least, North Korea has essentially mounted a quote-unquote a normal celebration or marking of the anniversary of the end of the Korean War, which North Koreans call it as a Victory Day. It's the day when the North Korea, China on one side, and the United Nations forces on the other side signed the armistice agreement, which actually ended the combat phase of the Korean War. So, in that sense, I think just bringing in the wartime veterans and then essentially, as you said, reinforcing the wartime narrative is something any other state would do in an occasion like this. So, the reason why this is interesting, though, is the fact that this is not something that North Korea usually does, on a day that actually refers to, connected to a major event in their history, such as the foundation of the party or the state, and including this occasion like this that celebrates the end of the war back in 1953, because North Korea's purpose of marking the anniversary has changed over time. Whereas before, only like 5-6 years ago, North Korea would use an occasion like this to mount a major parade showcasing their military hardware, for instance. And back then, though, North Korea was using these occasions to project power, or at least the perception of power. But now North Korea probably feels confident enough that it doesn't require to mount a political showcase or military show. So I think in that sense, this is a reversion to say a normal way of marking the anniversary of such as the end of the Korean War is in fact, in a way, paradoxically speaking, is an expression or manifestation of North Korea's confidence.
We could read confidence through the latest moves. But if we stick with the celebrations, then Professor Millard, China was also in the spotlight. Should we see that as a sign of improving North Korea-China relations? And also as Pyongyang grows closer to Moscow, where does Beijing fit in the picture?
So I think Dr. Go actually made a very good point there. Really, if you look at this was quite a normal celebration. So North Korea has been celebrating this, what they call the Victory Day, the armistice agreement, since 1996. And we have to remember this goes back to the end of the Korean War. So I don't know if we should be really overthinking this too much in terms of what does this show about the North Korea, China, North Korea, Russia sort of relations. I think we should be focusing on this as just showing what it is. This is the Victory Day parade. This goes back to when China was a very big partner for North Korea in the Korean War. So during this parade, during this event, lots of performances sort of recognizing the sacrifice made by the Chinese troops and so on. The visiting of the cemeteries where, of course, Chinese troops are also buried and so on. So on that part, I think we can just say, really, this is, like Dr. Go said, just sort of going back to the normal sort of idea of what this event actually is. Having said that, of course, if we do just go back to June, that was, of course, just a couple of months ago, month and a half, when President Xi visited Pyongyang. And remember, that was his first overseas visit of the year. So quite significant that he made the trip across to Pyongyang. So I think we can see on the whole that definitely Pyongyang, Beijing relations are continuing to improve. What was said sort of behind closed doors in that summit, maybe there was a little bit of pressure from Beijing to say, look, remember who your long-term partner has been, who has been for the past 70, 80 years, sort of your economic, political security partner, neighbor. So maybe just remember some of those roots. So potentially there was a little bit of pressure. So that's why maybe there has been a bit more focus on China. But again, generally the Korean War, this was all about the Chinese-North Korean relationship, nothing really to do with Russia. So I don't think there's too much to look into on that aspect.
All right. Thank you for that. Now, Dr. Go, another thing that caught many's eyes were the appearance of Kim Jong-un. We have talked about this a lot. It's many have said that it's still early to speculate, but from a succession standpoint, how significant did you see this latest appearance?
Well, when it comes to Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-un's first daughter, I would say, so it's all about the optics. And then I think North Korean again kept up the pattern of showcasing Kim Jong-un showcasing Kim Jong-un alongside Kim Jong-un side by side. So this has a lot of significance in North Korea because nobody in North Korea can essentially stand in front of Kim Jong-un. The maximum they can do is stand side by side. The rest will have to stand behind them. So just the geometry of the optics shows that Kim Jong-un is a very important personality in the North Korean regime. But we also know that South Korea's intelligence service, National Intelligence Service, has testified in the Korean National Assembly that Kim Jong-un has moved from being considered as heir to a phase where Kim Jong-un would get essentially an official title, also called heir designation phase. So even though the NIS, or National Intelligence Service, has put a lot of caveat around this assessment, so North Korea, at least when it comes to the optics or showcasing Kim Jong-un's standing in the regime, seems to be keeping up with the pattern. There's a continuity here that Kim Jong-un clearly has some sort of consolidated position within the regime. But again, we have to remember that she's only 13 years old, or speculated to be only 13. So clearly, there's no power struggle or jockeying for power on the part of Kim Jong-un. So Kim Jong-un is given this position now, the optics, the geometry, and all that by her parents probably, and that means that Kim Jong-un still is essentially a prop, quote unquote, in the overall propaganda machine of North Korea. So in North Korea, like in any authoritarian regimes, you get power through power struggle. And clearly, Kim Jong-un is too young for that. So in that sense, even though the optics shows that Jong-un is on the road to become the heir, the official heir of her father, that nothing is assured for her. So until we get an official confirmation, essentially the regime announcing that Kim Jong-un is indeed the heir to Kim Jong-un, nothing is sure, nothing can be taken for granted.
Right, so it's definitely something that we'll have to watch very closely moving forward. Now, beyond the celebrations, let's also turn to diplomacy, Professor Millard. The ARF once again reaffirmed its commitment to the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. What did you make of that? Did you see any change from the previous approach?
No. And to be honest, I think it would have been unrealistic to expect any sort of major change. So if we look back over the past 6 months, over the past year, at various different summits, so various different multilateral summits, bilateral summits, meetings between, for example, Trump and Xi and so on, and President Lee in various summits. Generally, the official line of all of the states around the world has been to maintain this idea, of denuclearization. So, like I said, it was unrealistic to expect a slightly different tone from the ARF. Now, what does this say? This suggests that sort of behind the scenes, there's also no one really pushing for a new agenda either. We have a lot of states, maybe unofficially, starting to change some of their opinions, change their tones. So I think we're starting to see a lot more countries, a lot more states realize, you know what, North Korea has nuclear weapons. It's having this burgeoning relationship with Russia, with China as well. It's not going to change. It's not going to denuclearize. It's not going to give them up. This is the reality now. So I think even though right now the official line is still to push for denuclearization, we're starting to see more and more states actually behind the scenes sort of unofficially move away. So we could see that, again, if we go back to the Xi visit to Pyongyang back in June, the official statements, neither the Chinese nor the North Korean statements mentioned anything about denuclearization. So that was a little bit of a change. Also, if we go back to June when President Lee gave his sort of 1-year anniversary address, he also didn't mention North Korea at all. Only later when he was asked questions in the Q&A. So I think definitely behind the scenes, over the next year or two, maybe we will start to see a little bit of change, but for right now, the general consensus is to maintain that sort of default denuclearization position.
Right. So as for now, nothing's really actually new right now. So given this situation, North Korea has quickly pushed back, and Kim Yo-jong, the sister of Kim Jong-un, said that the country's nuclear capabilities will continue to advance moving forward. Do you think it was more than just a response? And also, what do you think Seoul should be looking closely at?
Well, I agree that it was probably just a response by North Korea, essentially like a pro forma response by North Korea to any kind of challenge posed by the international community to North Korea's aspiration to be recognized as a nuclear state. So I completely agree with Professor Miller's assessment that the ARF announcement or like a statement that came out of ARF reaffirming the need for North Korea's nuclearization, by now sounds very hollow, and it's essentially even though it sounds hollow, the reason why it was reaffirmed this time essentially is a reflection of the policy inertia, or like a lack of policy ideas about how to achieve North Korea's denuclearization. We know that even though the countries that joined this statement, including China and Russia, are there, but then China and Russia, they have challenged this idea that North Korea's denuclearization should be any sort of priority when it comes to dealing with North Korea. We know South Korea's own Ministry of Unification, Chung Dong-yeong, mentioned that even though denuclearization is still a policy objective for South Korea, the engagement should be more important. So we know that the denuclearization is losing essentially steam as a policy drive. So in that sense, I think North Korea understands what's going on in the international stage. So I think this is the reason why North Korea didn't react aggressively or with hostility to this statement. They know what's going on, they know that the nuclearization as a policy objective is losing steam. So I think North Korea essentially repeated their long-standing response to this kind of statements.
We'll have to really watch on what North Korea would do next. But this also comes as North Korea skipped the ARF for another year. Professor Millard, why do you think Pyongyang is putting more weight on China and Russia rather than on multilateral diplomacy?
I think it simply comes down to North Korea's perception of where their priorities lies. What are they benefiting from these two different fora? And so when it comes to the ARF, so the ASEAN Regional Forum, which is generally more focused on security issues, so traditional security issues like denuclearization and so on, confidence building measures and so on throughout the region, and also non-traditional security. When it comes to the ARF, if you look back over its sort of history, in terms of non-traditional security, there has been some positive gains made in that area. When it comes to traditional security, however, so for example, territorial disputes and so on, actually the ARF hasn't really been able to do very much. Now that's maybe a little bit arguable, but I think most people would agree with that. And so for North Korea, they're looking at the ARF, and there's nothing really to benefit from them either being there or not being there. They know that the ARF is going to promote officially denuclearization. So for them, very simple, if they focus on deepening their relationship with Russia and China, where with Russia, they're going to get more technical know-how, technology sharing on sort of security aspects and things like that, and from China, a lot of economic support and so on, then very simple, the tangible results can be seen with that deepening axis with Russia and China.
Right, indeed. So they are really looking at the benefits that they could actually get from these countries. Now, speaking of which, there are concerns lately that North Korea is also considering to have another deployment of their troops to Russia. So if this actually happens, Dr. Go, what would it mean for the security on the peninsula?
Well, clearly it's going to have very serious, even severe ramifications for the security in the Korean peninsula, because it will ensure that the relationship between North Korea and Russia is beyond transactional. It's in fact very much a very strong, tight military alliance, and we're talking about Russia with a very powerful military technology that could easily be transferred to North Korea. But having said that, though, it's not so clear, or it's yet to be clarified whether this report that North Korea is about to send 30,000 soldiers to Russia is whether it's in fact true or not. I mean, it doesn't mean that the Ukrainian government, which essentially share this intelligence or publicly is lying about this. It could be that the two sides have, Russia and North Korea have discussed about repeat of redeployment, also redeployment of North Korean soldiers to Russia again, but then the Koreans may be preempting such an action being taken place. But then, having said that, this reason why we have to be skeptical about this is that the Ukrainian government had made a similar announcement last year, and then last year the Ukrainian government had mentioned that the Russia again was planning to invite up to 30,000 North Korean soldiers to Russia, and then so it was the same around the same time, and also we're talking about the same level of troop deployment. So we don't know whether it's going to happen or not. And then the South Korea's intelligence service has also reported that they haven't observed any significant signs that North Korea is readying itself to send up to 30,000 soldiers to Russia. The last time North Korea did it back in 2024, the deployment has been so observable that it was very clear that North Korea was sending a sizable number of troops to Russia. We are not hearing this from the South Korean intelligence yet. So in that sense, I think we have to be a little bit skeptical about this report, at least for now.
Nothing's fixed yet. But what about the response coming out from Europe, Professor Millard? How concerned is Europe about this growing North Korea-Russia cooperation and partnership?
So firstly, so I agree with Dr. Go that at the moment we do need to be a little bit skeptical. So far, neither Pyongyang nor Moscow have confirmed this. And like Dr. Go said, last year there were similar ideas. But we should also remember, if we go back to 2024, when North Korea first started deploying those troops in smaller numbers to Russia, then the Ukrainians, Zelensky, they were again the first to say this is going to happen. even though Moscow and Pyongyang, again, were still denying it then, actually that turned out to be true. So again, we do need to be a little bit careful, but there is the possibility it might happen, considering also that at the moment Russia is in a pretty bad situation. It's losing troops, has quite high casualty rates, needs to replenish those. Would 30,000 troops be possible? That is a big question. So maybe the number may be smaller, but again, they could happen. Now, from the European side, it's becoming more and more concerning the longer this goes on. 2 years ago, when North Korea was first starting, then it was considered a little bit maybe more short-term. Russia maybe just using North Korea just for its own benefit. However, now we're into 2-3 years of cooperation, where it seems the relationship, it's only getting stronger. Now this is turning much more into a long-term security situation for Eurasia and also for the Korean Peninsula, Northeast Asia, and so on. So I think the Europeans are becoming a little bit more concerned that this is not just short-term, this is long-term again, and will expand into other areas like space technology, cyber, and so on and so forth. So I think that's where the Europeans are starting to be more concerned.
Right. Clearly, there are the relationship is seeing a lot of cooperation in many aspects as well. But before we conclude our discussion tonight, Dr. Go, what kind of variable would you be watching over the second half of the remaining year?
So I think we should be watching out for the potential friction between Washington and Seoul. So we know that the OPCON transfer that's being carried out between the two countries have a little bit of mismatch about the endpoint. And also there seems to be that the United States has thinking about a different mission profile for the U.S. forces stationed in South Korea. And then that has implication for South Korea's relationship with China, because the USFK, its mission is being reoriented away from North Korea towards China. And I think the discussion with South Korea and the United States are engaged in a very serious discussion about defining the mission, as well as what kind of implications that will have for the South Korean posture, military posture, regarding North Korea especially. So I think this is it's essentially a very technical issue, but something that we should be watching out carefully. And also, obviously, there's North Korea. North Korea is keep carrying out its build-up when it comes to nuclear capability. And North Korea is very quiet right now, but then they might surprise us at any given moment. So whenever North Korea surprises us, that's actually a crisis. So something that we should be having an eye on.
Right, definitely. Plenty of things to watch and look forward to in the coming months ahead. But as for now, we'll have to leave our discussion here tonight. Thank you so much for your insights, Dr. Go.
My pleasure.
And of course, Professor Millett as well. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Till then, stay informed and engaged.